Today's guest is Dr. Andrew Vallo, and let me tell you, this guy's story is pretty wild. In just over 4 years, he opened not one, not two, but 10 startup dental offices. With six of those, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Vallo, in the last 6 months alone.
Yeah. Our most recent six offices we did in just about a 6 month stretch. So
Awesome. So his group nearly hit a $2 million revenue month. One office set a $447,000 monthly record, and one of his brand new startups collected $80,000 in just 2 days. But as you know, it's not all smooth sailing. Dr. Andrew is going to share with us all the challenges he's faced, like moving his family, giving out health benefits, even fighting his first wrongful lawsuit, termination lawsuit, all while trying to grow all this group. So today we're going to dive into system strategies and the mindset that allows him to grow at a pace without burning out. That's really important. So if you're a dentist, if you're a business owner, or just somebody curious about scaling fast, you're going to get a ton of value from this. So, Andrew, thanks for being here, man. I got to say, I saw your Facebook post in July in one of the dental groups, I think, and it was just, it blew me away. 10 offices, hitting almost 2 million in a single month, doing all this stuff. Yeah, I really want to unpack that today. So my first question to you is, if you had to sum up your life right now in just one word, what would it be?
yeah, let me think about that for 1 second here. I want to say obviously, thank you for having me today. I'm honored and excited to be, part of your podcast here. If I had to sum up my life in one word right now, um, God, I would say grit. I think grit is one of the core values of my organization. And I would say of all of our core values, it is probably the like number one in my heart. And I would attribute, most of our success these last few years to that tendency. Because I'll tell you, like you mentioned, man, it's not all smooth sailing. So, there are almost every single week there are major new issues and fires I've got to deal with. And there are those moments where you feel like just throwing your hands in the air and being like, you know what, the hell with this. Like, why am I even doing this anymore? That type of a thing. So I think
Yeah.
it's that staying power. It's that perseverance. It's, into the storm mentality. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Whatever, however you want to, sum it up. I think that's the word I would use. So,
So I guess I'm curious, how did you go from dental school? Where did you go to dental school?
I went to Ohio State.
Okay. So how did you go from dental school and then opening not just one office, but 10 in just 4 years? Because, when I got out of dental school at LSU, 20 something years ago, I was just thinking, you look at what all the dentists do. Most of the dentists, what they do, they get out and they either join a practice or they start their own practice or they buy one. So it's just like a one office mindset. But you go and you do 10. So what pushed you down that path instead of just building one big solo practice?
Yeah, it was honestly, man, it was a pretty interesting trajectory. So I graduated dental school 2016. When I first came out of school, I actually was working with a large corporate group, and it was one of those groups that gives you the opportunity to buy in, and I was thinking about going that route. After a couple months, it became evident that wasn't the right path for me. And I actually shifted gears. I had a buddy a few years ahead of me in dental school, and he was working in public health, and he said, "Hey, man, this is a great gig. Right out of school, you can get some loan repayment going. Lot of PTO, pretty easy, good experience with molar endo surgical extractions because there's really no specialist out here." And so I decided to do that. And I spent about 3 years driving to the middle of nowhere, Ohio, 5 days a week doing public health dentistry. And it was really rewarding. I think that was a good, true first stepping stone for me out of school after I quickly realized that the corporate DSO route wasn't the way I wanted to go. Um, from
Did you
there,
have did
I
you
did
have a
get
lot
to,
of loans like when you got out?
yeah, yeah, I graduated about 400K in debt. So, and they only reimbursed like 50 grand. So I did get a little chunk of that from the 2 year commitment.
Okay.
At that point, I did decide I thought I was ready for practice ownership. So my wife and I decided we wanted to move to Florida. We were just sick of the winters. I did what I had heard on the Shared Practices podcast. I sent out letters to about 50 different dentists in a certain radius around the area in Florida we thought we wanted to live, around Tampa. And I had a couple hits, and one of them actually led to an LOI. So I was about to buy a practice. We had a signed LOI. We were in the 11th hour. We had already sold our house in Ohio. We had already put a deposit down on a rental in Tampa. And right at the end, the sellers got cold feet and decided to back out. It was a husband wife dentist, and I think they decided maybe they weren't quite ready to retire quite yet after all. So that got pulled, from under me. My wife looked at me and said, what are we going to do? And I said, we've already sold the house. We're committed. We're moving to Florida. I'll take another job. We'll figure it out. And so I did find an associate job in a private practice. And at the same time, I decided I didn't want my future, my livelihood, my practice ownership. I didn't want that to depend on anyone else. So I decided I was going to go the startup route. So that was when I started planning my startup. My first startup was when we first moved to Tampa. That was the summer of 2019.
Hmm. Got it. So, whenever you're out there, and this could probably help a dentist, you're opening your practices. So what in your mindset, like, how do you decide, okay, it's time to open another one? So like if a dentist is out there going, I'm kind of, I'd like to grow, but I'm not really sure if I know how to, or when's the right time. How do you make that decision?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say with that first startup, it did take some time. So if you guys out there are thinking about doing a startup, you haven't done one yet, a traditional startup route, it can take 18, 24 months, between looking for a space, finding a space, either purchasing or signing a lease, doing a build out. I mean, it's a long time period, and I've actually, this is a whole nother topic, but I've more recently pivoted to second generation dental spaces. That's how I was able to do 6 startups in 6 months. Um, but that first startup, it took some time. I was very intentional about how I wanted to grow. So I went against a lot of the advice that you hear out there in the dental world. A lot of people tell you you can't afford to hire a hygienist from day one. You got to do your own hygiene. In my mind, I couldn't afford not to hire a hygienist from day one. I said, why would I bottleneck the growth of my practice by doing all the hygiene myself when I don't have time to do dentistry? And so even though, the bank that was giving me the loan and, other people out there in the peanut gallery were all saying, you should wait. You don't know how long it's going to take, that you can't afford that hygienist salary. I had a full-time hygienist from day one. I also invested a good amount in marketing from day one. Now, a lot less than I do now, in hindsight, even, back then I probably would have spent even more on marketing. But it is a little bit more challenging if it's your first startup and you don't have a lot of cash on hand. So.
Do you think growing up, you've always been entrepreneurial? Where did I mean? Where do you think that comes from, or has come from?
Yeah, I mean, I would say growing up, I've always been a little bit stubborn. So I don't know if that relates to entrepreneurial, but I think I've had some difficulties always following authority or following the rules or being told what to do, and I think maybe some of that led to the my entrepreneur journey. I did, I had a little summer landscaping company in our neighborhood that me and my brothers started. I mean, I was probably in middle school at that time, so we did that for a few years. I waited tables. I think that honestly has helped a lot with the customer service aspect, for our dental group, being in
Definitely,
that hospitality industry.
definitely.
But yeah, I think I knew I wanted to go to dental school from the time I was a freshman in high school. And I think from that time, I always knew I wanted to eventually own a practice. I wanted that business side of it. I don't think for a long time, even in dental school, even when I first graduated, I don't think I came with the mindset, hey, I'm going to start a large, or a mid-sized dental group. I'm going to open 10 practices or anything like that. I
Hmm.
think it was just a natural progression. And I think like my intentionality to go upstream, to invest in our employees, to invest in, good marketing. I mean, these days I spend between $10,000 and $20,000 a month on marketing for every single office. And typically when it's a brand new startup, we're closer to that $20,000 a month range, because my goal is right out the gates, we want to get 125, 150 new patients a month from day one.
So that was sort of what I was leading into my next question. In your Facebook post, you had mentioned something about you'll never find A-deck chairs or expensive cabinetry in my startups because. So, can you explain that philosophy a little bit? I mean, you kind of talked about that a little bit. So why spend less on the build out and more on the marketing and the people? Is it just to get that influx of new patients from day one, or is that kind of what you're thinking? Your thought process is?
Yeah, man. I actually, it's funny. I was trying to get my buddy, we were just talking offline, but my buddy from dental school is flying out to Oregon, and I was just visiting. He's going out to the ADEC headquarters because he's looking to do his third office. And I said, those ADEC chairs, sure, they're great. It's a great company. I said, but you can get Danceroo chairs for half the price, or even potentially less than half the price that you're paying for those ADEC chairs. My philosophy is that I like to invest money in things that I know are going to turn an ROI. And I can almost guarantee you with 100% certainty, I would not see any bump in revenue if I had swapped out my Danceroo chairs for ADEC chairs. I don't think I would see a single penny more in revenue by doing that. But I will invest money in things that I do think will drive ROI. So like things like TVs. All of my operatories have at least one large screen TV, and it depends on the setup. Again, now we're not doing build outs, we're doing second gen dental spaces. But some of my offices have like the breakaways. We have two 50-inch TVs on top of each other on the 12 o'clock wall I guess the 6 o'clock, I don't know, whatever the patient's facing. And then we've got another TV on the ceiling. So 3 TVs in those rooms. Do you guys know what TVs cost these days? A 50-inch TV you can get for like $180. So it's literally pennies when you think about the cost of dental equipment, supplies, build out. But patients walk in that room. First of all, it's a great education tool. But second of all, they're wowed. They're like, wow, this practice is so futuristic and there's so much technology. It's just a couple TVs on the wall. So that's the stuff I'll spend money on. A lot of times I like to get like a centerpiece chandelier. I'll go on Wayfair, $1,200, give or take. We'll put this nice giant chandelier right in the, a center point of our office, either in the patient lounge area, which is what I'd like to call our waiting rooms, or maybe like in a part of a hallway where things kind of dissect or whatever. Those draw attention. Those make your office look way nicer. That $1,200 goes a lot further than spending an extra $7,000 on a dental chair.
So you mentioned that you spend, did you say 10 to 20 grand initially when you start up in marketing a month?
Yeah, I mean, so these days, and again, it's a little bit different with the size of our group. We have the excess cash flow where it's a little bit easier to stomach that, but we do, yes. From right out the gates, we spend 15 to 20,000 a month, and then depending on demand, depending on how many openings we have for new patients for consults, I will start to sometimes wind it in a little bit. But typically the lowest monthly ad spend I would say in a given office would be about 10 grand a month. So even our offices that are a little bit more much, we've got 2 offices this year that should each do over $3.5 million, closing on $4 million mark. Even those offices, we're still investing serious marketing dollars every single month, because my philosophy is I always want that influx of new patients.
What
So I
kind
mean,
of
again,
marketing
eventually,
are you doing? What kind of marketing are you doing?
yeah, we diversify a little bit, and some of it depends on so I've got offices that focus only on dental implants. I've got offices that are more general where we also do dental implants. Our dental implant marketing is almost 100% Facebook. So we do a little bit of Google ads. Every once in a while I'll do a mailer depending on the area. But I would say, 90% plus in a given month of our ad spend for dental implants is on Facebook. That's where most of our patients that need dental implants are at. Versus Invisalign. The vast majority of my marketing for Invisalign is on Instagram, because that's where most of my patients that want Invisalign are at. So you've got to think about what are you specifically marketing for, and where is that target demographic? Our general well, I guess let's go to emergencies. All of our emergency marketing is on Google, because when someone has a dental emergency, they're not just scrolling Facebook hoping to see an ad for a dental office. they're on Google searching for a dentist that can see them that's open, that type of a thing. So we do targeted Google ads specifically for emergencies, specifically for same day emergencies, because our philosophy is even if the schedule's packed, we'll squeeze you in. I mean, worst case scenario, we can do a quick limited exam, call in a prescription, even if we can't provide same day treatment. And when patients are hurting, they want to get in that day. They don't want to get in next week or next month or anything like that. So we'll run those, and those ads work very well on Google. General new patients, we do a lot of that on Google. We do some of that on Facebook. We do some of that on Instagram. So that's a little bit more split, between the different mediums there.
You have in-house marketing people doing this for you, or are you using a group? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So for almost the entire time that I've had my offices, it's been over 4 years now at this point, but I've been using the same marketing company. It's Energized Group Dental Marketing. I've become good friends with the owners. One of the owners, Matt Brown, he's my co-host on my podcast, which is Dental Unfiltered. So we've definitely formed a good relationship, but they've been great partners. I don't have anybody internal to my group that handles marketing besides me. So
Mm-hmm.
I got out of the chair about a year ago. So I've not done any clinical dentistry in the last year or so. I'm full-time CEO, but I'm kind of CEO/CMO. So I'm like our chief marketing officer for our group. That is one of my main tasks. I work on something with marketing essentially every single day. And then I meet with our like marketing manager at Energize twice a month. And at one meeting, we'll talk about like half of the offices, and at the other meeting, we'll talk about the other half. What do we need to fine tune? What's going well? What's maybe not working? I plan out like the entire calendar year, different seasonal promotions. So like we'll do things like Invisalign parties where we close a bunch of Invisalign cases in one day. I'm big on Black Friday specials. So like our most recent meetings, we are talking about all these Black Friday sales we're going to be running. So again, I think you get out of marketing what you put into it, both from a dollar perspective, but also an effort perspective. So my advice, honestly, guys, let the professionals handle it. Even if you're like me and you're a little bit more well-versed with marketing and you're pretty hands-on, it's challenging as a dentist business owner to really take the reins and do all the marketing yourself. And I think you're gonna hurt your business if you try to do that. So find a company that actually knows what they're doing, work closely with them, spend the time, have the meetings, keep a finger on the pulse, evaluate how well it's working, what kind of ROI you're getting on different ads, and then have the abundance mindset to invest in the marketing. If you're spending $500 a month on Google ads or $1,000 a month, that's why you're not getting enough new patients. You do need to spend enough money on marketing in order to get the return that you're looking for. So,
Now, you just mentioned that you're not doing clinical dentistry anymore, correct?
correct.
Congratulations. Um,
Thank you.
so, for the dentists out there that's listening to that, and obviously you're working on your business, not in your business, is that from, did you have like you had to have some sort of shift in mindset because, most people, you think you go to dental school, you're going to be a dentist for 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to be working on patients, and then you've not doing that anymore. So did anything influence you on, for me, it was the cash flow quadrant, with Robert Kiyosaki, with, the employee, the self-employed, but getting out of that role and getting to the business owner or investor mindset. So did any of that play a role in what you're doing now, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit out of necessity and maybe like some self-actualization, but like it is a strange, transition to go through. Um, I never hated dentistry, so I wasn't sitting there with the intention of like I hate coming in here and doing this work. I can't wait to get out of the chair. But I also, realized I maybe wasn't in love with doing dentistry, at least not all the procedures every single day. And I realized that my greatest value add. I mean, I think I was a good dentist. I would stand behind my work, but I realized my biggest value add was really as a business owner, as a CEO, marketer, and so like as my group quickly began to take off, I realized that I was spreading myself too thin, and I
Hmm.
couldn't give my full attention to both the dentistry and to the business ownership, as systems, operations. And at that time, I didn't have a large leadership team supporting me. I When I got out of the chair, we were at 4 locations, and we were getting ready to go through this quick. We had all these plans to add all these additional locations, and I was starting to beef up my leadership team, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't keep doing it, and it was like a transition down. So I didn't just go from full time to zero clinical dentistry. I went from full time, and then as I started bringing associates, I cut back to 3 days a week. That was a pretty nice spot for a while, until the business demands grew, and then it became a challenge. And I cut down to 2 days a week. And actually, for a brief period of time, I cut down to 1 day a week. I would not recommend 1 day a week, guys. I don't know if anyone out here has tried it. The problem with 1 day a week is that 1 day you're there, they load your schedule with all of the patients who only want to see you, and a lot of them are problem patients who have concerns. So like you dread going in for that 1 day. So very quickly I said, okay, this 1 day thing is not working. I just need to rip the Band-Aid and get out of the chair completely. And I think I was myself and the business were in a much better place once I transitioned out of that 1 day a week role. So
So, opening multiple offices, of course, you've got to fill those with dentists. Do you have, where's your pipeline coming from? I think a lot of times dentists are bottleneck going, okay, I'm trying to get somebody in or associate or expand or even maybe sell my practice. And I just don't know where to go, where to look. Where are you finding your associates from?
yeah, so I mean, I will say I think every demographic has advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantage of being in bigger cities in Florida is that there's more competition from other dentists. One of the advantages is that there's a lot more associate dentists that want to work there. So I do feel like we've got a little bit of a bigger pool than a lot of areas. That said, we also I have a partner on the implant offices. He's a periodontist. He has a pretty wide network of dentists that he knows, and so he actually just from people he knows has pulled in dentists to our group. My podcast, we've actually had dentists seek me out, or seek out the group from the podcast. So
Hmm.
my Facebook posts, we've had dentists reach out to me. Hey, are you looking for another associate? I really love what you're doing. It sounds like you're building something great there. And then we also use traditional methods like Indeed. That's one of our go-tos. And then I also use Paul Goodman's Dentist Job Connect. So we kind of put a lot of different things out there.
Hmm.
And the good news is at this point, we almost have like a bullpen. Like we've got a handful of docs that are like waiting for specific locations. Like, hey, if you put an office here, let me know. Either I live here, or I want to move here, or whatever it is. We actually just had that happen with our most recent office, which was in Fort Myers. We had a dentist move down from North Carolina because him and his wife wanted to move to Florida, and they were looking for that Southwest coast. Hey, if you get something in the Sarasota, Fort Myers, Naples area, let me know. As soon as we found that location, he was the first dentist we went to, and he's in the process. He's already started there, and he's in the process of moving his family, down there to permanently be there. So,
So who's your periodontist business partner? I might know him as a periodontist.
his name is Sasha Tograniger.
Don't know him. Okay. I'll have to meet him one
Yeah,
day.
so he's a great dude. So I always say we're like the yin and the yang. He is like the heavy clinical. So he's kind of our chief, clinical officer, chief dental officer. He's big on technology, so he's always looking for ways to increase our efficiency with like 3D workflow and all that cool stuff. He speaks for Dentsply. But he didn't have a lot of like the business. He had never done a startup. He had never really done a lot on the business side of the dentistry. Whereas that's my area of expertise. So I think we mesh well together. There's a lot out there about bad partnerships. I knock on wood. I'm grateful to say that in basically 4 years of partnership, I don't think we've had a single like real disagreement. So I think we mesh well, we work well together. I know it's not always that case, but I'm grateful to have a partner that can complement my attributes here. So
Well, you had just mentioned technology. Are two questions on that. Number one, are you using any type of AI in your practices, whether it's clinical or for customer service? And then number two, where do you think in the future AI is going to develop or help or change or affect dentistry?
Yeah. Um, so yeah, again, my partner leads the charge there. He actually, we were on a flight back from a dental conference we went to together, and he had been telling me for months to download Chat GPT, and eventually just grabs my phone and says, "Here, give me your phone. I'm going to download it for you." And so he kind of awokened, a beast in that, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So now I use it for a whole bunch of stuff. But we've been using like automation since day one. So things like, automated appointment reminders and confirmations, automated overdue recare reminders, automated uh, unscheduled treatment reminders, automated Google review requests. So, that's a little more automation than AI, but still that's been very helpful. We did add Overjet AI software last year. So that's probably the biggest true AI, I guess, that we utilize at this point in time. But I went to the Bulletproof Dental Summit recently, and they had a few different talks about AI in dentistry, and some of them blew my mind. I mean, there are some really, really cool, crazy things happening. There was someone who talked about creating a custom GPT where they inserted all these different case law studies from cases where insurance companies wrongfully denied dental insurance claims. And basically, this thing will spit out an appeal letter where it points to specific cases. And apparently, they're having like 100% success getting these appeals approved because of this custom GPT. So, like, that was crazy. There was one about, using AI to create like different apps. And that sparked my interest. And I said, man, I would love to have a patient loyalty app. Like, think of Starbucks, a rewards app where patients get points for coming to appointments, for, doing referrals, even things like home care. Like, they could check in on the app and, hey, I brushed and flossed, and they get points just for checking in. Because at the end of the day, you want them visiting the app frequently and thinking about your practice and getting these points. And they can use their points for, maybe office swag or free teeth whitening or free cleaning if, they don't have insurance, or free fluoride, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But I think that would be really cool to develop an app like that for our group. And it's something that's been on the back burner now since I went to that conference. Whenever we get the time to truly explore it, I'm hoping we'll make that happen. So.
Switching back to something that sparked my question about marketing, are you using YouTube in any marketing for any of your practices? And if so, how?
So YouTube is one area that I have not utilized for marketing. So it's probably a good avenue to explore. I do
Mhm.
know that people do use YouTube successfully, but yeah, that's not an avenue I've explored yet.
Yeah, the reason I was thinking back, somebody asked me on a podcast recently, after practicing for over 20 years, if you could do it over again, would you do anything differently marketing wise? And with having a YouTube channel for my passive income and real estate business, I would say because think about it, people go to YouTube to they're going to ask a question like how to
Yeah.
change a battery in a 20,000, 2015 Honda Civic or something like that. So um, there's a 80 something year old periodontist that I know up north, and he's got a YouTube channel, and all he does is just when patients come in and then this, I mean, you got 10 offices, so I'm sure you've got this huge database of the most frequently asked questions, and he just makes a video about it. Some of these videos get over 1 million views.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
insane. And it's like literally just picks up his phone and how do I clean after I get a dental implant, how do I clean my mouth? Just stuff like that. And it's insane. So
I mean, I'll tell you, I think it's a great idea, and I totally believe it too, because we have, with our social media marketing, we've really transitioned where a lot of that marketing is video based. Now they're short form videos,
mhm.
they're 30 seconds or less. It's a quick, quick hook. To kind of, usually I start the video with some kind of question, something like, we'll do giveaways. So we give away free dental treatment, and part of that is a way just to get people in the doors. So, we'll give away free Invisalign at our Invisalign parties. And, I'll start the video with like, would free Invisalign change your life? Well, there's a great hook. All of a sudden they're listening, and people often have short attention spans. So, you just gotta quickly get to it, over the next 10, 15 seconds, and give them a concise, action that they need to take. So it's like, hey, for more information, send me a message. And so a lot of my Instagram videos are that way. It's like, would you like this? If so, send me a message and I'll give you more information. I'll introduce myself. I'm Dr. Andrew Vallo, blah, 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 whatever. But those do work extremely well. YouTube, I guess, would be a little bit more long form video, maybe not crazy. You don't have to do half-hour videos, but probably more, at least a few minutes as you're explaining something to patients. And, it could take some time to, invest in doing that. But now so you're saying you can advertise these YouTube videos like I do on Instagram. So you could create a video on YouTube, advertise it so that more people view it rather than just waiting for organic viewers. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could do it.
Okay.
You could do it both because you're organic. You're naturally going to get people searching for
Yeah.
it, but then you'll
Yeah.
be targeting Tampa or Naples or wherever your offices are too. I'm sure
Interesting.
your
Okay.
guys at Energize can
Yeah.
walk you through that. But
It's a good idea.
but it's it's amazing because when I go to conferences and stuff, I spoke at a conference 2 weeks ago, real estate investing for dentists in Dallas, and just about everybody that knew about me, they're like, "Oh yeah, I watch your video." And what they would come up to me and go, "Hey, 3 years ago, you helped me with this video on a something with a short term rental or whatever," and it just shows me that because I used to blog a lot, and people aren't coming up to me and going, "Hey, I read your article on X."
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I watched your video," so it's because that's how I learn. I'm listening to I'm watching podcasts or watching
Yep.
videos,
Yep.
and
Well,
it's
I think it just goes to show like you've got to change with the times. So, it's like
hmm
if you're a dentist who's been a dentist for a long time, the way that you used to market 20 years ago is probably not the way you should be marketing today. I think a lot has changed, and you've got to keep up with those changes. Otherwise, you're gonna get left behind. So,
All right. So for the dentist right now that's listening to this, and maybe they're stuck at one office, that they have one office and they want to grow, give me the top three strategies that they could give me some, takeaways right now that they could get to maybe to start that next office or.
yeah, I mean, I think honestly, the first thing you need if you want to truly grow, like if I'm not talking you want to grow from 1.2 to 1.4 million a year. I'm saying if you want like exponential growth, you want to double the size of your practice, you want to add more practices. I think the number one thing you need is you need that abundance mindset. And I know that's very cliche to say like, hey, abundance versus scarcity. But I really truly believe it to my core because there was a lot of this there have been a lot of difficult decisions I've had to make along our journey for our growth. And I think if I didn't have the right mindset, it would have stopped our growth. It would have bottlenecked our growth. So like, having that willingness to take on some risk and put yourself out there and invest in yourself and invest in your business. And again, investing in your team. And unfortunately, I think so often we look at our teams as an expense, and like, yes, payroll is an expense, but adding, it's like I will add team members before I feel like we truly need them. I'll have dentists ask me all the time, how do you know when it's safe to add another hygienist, another assistant, another associate dentist, whatever it is? And I always tell them, like, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, if I added this other person, is there the potential to increase our revenue? And
Mhm.
like for a hygienist, even if your other hygienists aren't crazy booked out, but they're fairly full, and you think you can get some more new patients in, I believe it's worth it to add that hygienist early, even if their schedule's only half full. Half their day they're not seeing patients. All you need is one of those new patients that sees the hygienist to commit to doing one crown. I mean, at that point in time, you've more than paid that hygienist salary for the day. So like, that's the way that I look at, growth and adding team members. Same with the assistant, man. If you if you have an extra room and you added another assistant and that would allow you to do some more same day dentistry, all you need to do is one extra crown that day or a couple extra fillings, and you've more than covered their salary for the day. So I don't look at it as hey, are we at this point where it's safe? I'm more like, is there potential to increase revenue if we add more team members? And I will invest in the team early, and I won't let it bother me if there's days where we didn't really need that team member. I also won't send team members home. I think a lot of dentists are like, ooh, like there's nothing for you to do. You got to go home. I don't think that's fair to our team. So I'm like, hey, fine. If you want to go home, you can, but find something to do and you're welcome to stay here as long as you're being productive. Same thing with associates. I brought on my first associate when my startup was only about a year old. So,
Hmm.
we had grown pretty quick, but like, did I truly need the extra dentist there? No, at that point, I didn't truly need that extra dentist, but I knew we could do a lot more dentistry and grow a lot faster if I brought them on. And I even was okay with the fact that I knew it was going to decrease my production. And I was like, that's fine. And that was actually the time I cut myself back from 4 to 3 days a week. So it's like, again, you got to have the right mindset about it. I think that's the most important thing. The second most important thing, again, you got to find a good marketing company. And I think honestly, guys, I've heard bad things about almost every dental marketing company out there. But again, I think you get out what you put in. So you got to give it enough time. You got to put enough energy and effort in yourself. You've got to meet with them. If the marketing company asks you for things, you got to actually do those things. And if you do that and you invest enough in marketing, so I have a lot of dentists ask me like, okay, I can't spend 15 to 20 grand a month right now on marketing. And I understand that not everyone can realistically make that happen. And maybe not everyone needs that many new patients right now. And that's okay. But like, what's a bare minimum? In my mind, if you're spending less than 5 grand a month on marketing, you're doing your practice a disservice. So like, that is like a bare minimum number to me. You got to spend at least 5 grand and make sure you're spending it in the most efficient ways possible. So again, it depends on what your practice makeup is, what type of patients you're looking for. But I do think social media is our number one across the board means for marketing. Google is number two, and mailers are a distant third. I do mailers occasionally here and there. If you're spending your entire marketing budget on mailers, that's probably why you're not getting enough new patients in the door. So that's second. I guess my third piece of advice, I guess if you're looking to add another practice, it's nice if you can lower your risk. So that's where these second gen spaces come in. Man, our last couple startups, I'm typically getting them open for our cheapest one only costs about 150,000 total to get that one open. And I'd say they've ranged between like 150 and 350.
What
So
is that? If people don't know what that is, explain that second gen space.
yeah, so it's basically a space that was already built out for a dental office. And
Okay.
and for one reason or another, it's available. So there's sometimes the dentist moves to a bigger, newer location. We've actually had that happen twice, where the dentist moved across the street to a new location. Well, now there's an empty dental office. One of the dentists was happy to have us come in because that was an implant office we did there and they didn't do any implants. We're like, oh, this is great. We can refer to you, whatever. The other
Hmm.
dentist was not happy. But at the same time, they didn't own the building. What were they going to do? They told the landlord, hey, you should bring like a veterinarian or a medical doctor in. And the landlord's like, it's built for a dental office. I'm sure a dentist is going to want to come in there. So they weren't happy about it. It is what it is. We came in, scooped up the space. Um, I've had ones where dentists have, retired, but they basically let their practices die. So, there's little to no patients that are left. And we've just basically, taken over the practice. Sometimes we bought their equipment. In those circumstances, I haven't actually bought the patient base because it was so small or meaningless. And I think one of the times the dentist kind of referred the patients to us, and the other one, I think they referred them to a buddy. But I think that's a good opportunity when the practice has dwindled so small that they can't really sell it, as a true patient based practice. Um, I've had ones where unfortunately the dentist, we had one where a dentist just stopped paying his bills. And so he had a lien put against, the landlord basically kicked him out. He had a lien against his equipment. And so all we had to do was sign the lease and we just had to pay the lien it was like 10 grand, the lien on all the equipment. And we got to take over the space and the equipment. And I guess the last one, sometimes these DSOs will trim the fat. So we took over an old Great Expressions office where I guess it was one of their lower performing offices and they just shut it down. So
Hmm.
just abandoned dental, and they actually left some equipment there. Not a lot. It wasn't like chairs and stuff, but they think they left some like nitrous tanks and some other random stuff. So we got some free equipment. We signed a lease, and it was actually in pretty good shape. We didn't even have to put a fresh coat of paint on. I mean, like it was a nice enough space. So we essentially just got right in there, bought some dental chairs, put some furniture in the waiting room, and that was about it. So
Awesome. So before we close, I have a little lightning round, four
Okay,
questions for you. Okay.
let's
This ought
do
to
it.
be fun. All right. First one is what, in your opinion, what's your biggest win so far?
I would say my biggest win so far is my family. The business stuff is great, but I think why do we do all this? It's for our family. So I've got a 2.5-year-old. I've got a very supportive wife that deals with all my crazy risk taking and work ethic and all that other stuff. So I would say my family's my number one win.
All right. Second is what's your hardest lesson learned so far?
Ooh, that's a good one. Hardest lesson learned so far would be, um, I think trusting your gut when you're hiring. I think sometimes we feel so much pressure to hire for a position that
Hmm.
we'll hire people that deep down we know maybe aren't the right people. And at this point, honestly, I'm not super involved in the hiring of most of our team members these days, but still, I've made some decisions that I knew probably weren't the right fit, and it turned out that I was correct, and I would have saved myself a lot of headache and hassle if I would have just trusted my gut and been a little more patient in hiring those positions.
Okay. Number three, what's one thing that you splurge on personally?
Okay, this is an easy one for me. I fly a decent amount to dental conferences and things like that. I would say about once a month. I also one of our business cards was Delta. So one time I got upgraded to first class about 2 years ago, and I had never flown first class before. And I said, "Man, I used to hate flying. This is actually kind of nice." So I would say 90% of the time I fly, I splurge and fly first class, and I enjoy flying a heck of a lot more. The main times I don't are when my wife and son are with me, um, or if we sometimes like a short flight to Atlanta, I'll not do it if I don't think it's worth it. But I've also had that backfire twice where you get on the plane and then you sit on the runway for 2 hours and you're delayed and I'm like scrunched. But I'm not like a small person, and especially if you've got
Yeah.
larger people beside you, it is like so uncomfortable just sitting there. So that is probably my main splurge that I'll do.
I remember years ago we take our kids skiing every year for Christmas. That's our Christmas that we do.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
and I've got two boys. They're both in college now, but we let them come up to first class with us. So they all set for, we all set first class. We splurged so that how on the bigger planes, how when you walk in, some of them when you walk in, you turn to the right and there's all
Yep.
the first class. You keep, but the plane that we were on, when you walk in, first class goes left and the rest of the plane goes
Yep.
right. So the next year we go skiing, and that was it. They weren't doing that anymore. So my wife and I went left, and you should have just seen their face when they had to go, to the right. And then so afterwards they were like, "Dad, why couldn't we sit, with y'all, or whatever?" I was like, "That's life. You have to earn your spot at the front of the plane." And they said they've never forgotten that. They got
That's
that
great. I
taste.
I love that lesson, man. Yeah. The problem is once you taste it's hard to go back. So like
Yep.
that's what I think it's that much harder than to sit and coach when you're kind of used to sitting in first class. But I think that's a great life lesson for the kids. My dad when I turned 16, he said, "Hey, you want a car, you're going to earn it." And so I did. My first car was a 1987 Buick Century. I bought it with $700 cash that I earned waiting tables. I paid for my insurance. I paid for my gas, and I do think that had a lasting impact on me. As far as my work ethic and entrepreneurial journey and everything goes. Whereas I had friends in high school whose parents, bought them everything and bought them cars, and I feel like there is a little bit of a disconnect there with a lot of them with the work ethic.
Hmm.
So
All right. And last but not least, in our lightning round, what's one thing that you absolutely refuse to spend money on, or maybe not that much money on? You kind of you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on something.
yeah, I would say for me, it's probably like clothing and accessories. Like, I mean, I'm wearing a hat and a t-shirt here. I'm not a fancy dress kind of guy, and I have no problem spending money on things that I enjoy. I
Mhm.
actually I'm big on my morning routines. So I recently had gotten a cold plunge for my house, like one of those automated ones that syncs to your phone. And I'm having a sauna put in today, actually. So like
We
those are
actually
things that I
have
will.
we have both of those actually. My
Do
wife every
you?
morning she
I
hits the
love it,
cold
man.
plunge. I'm like, man, you are a
So
tough woman.
no problem splurging on things that I actually like get enjoyment out of, but
Hmm.
like buying a $300 pair of jeans or a, $200 shirt or whatever, like to me, I'd rather have my $20 t-shirt. So I think that's
Hmm.
probably, and my wife probably wishes I'd spend a little bit more money on my attire, but that's probably the biggest one for me, I would say.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I'm more, as you and you'll know as your kids get older, you're more on I'm more on experiences and take them
Yeah.
traveling. They're never going to forget that, but you give them a game or something at Christmas, in a week they forget about it, but they don't forget about those experiences. But I really appreciate your time today. I know that we ran
Oh
over a
yeah.
little bit. So if people want to learn more about you, your podcasts, how to connect with you, tell them how to do that.
Sure. If you guys want to see some of my social media marketing, I mean, it's literally from my personal Instagram page. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's dr.andrewvallo. So Dr. Andrew Vallo on Instagram. If you have a specific question for me in regards to marketing startups, I'm happy to answer them, guys. I will tell you, I get a lot of dentists reaching out to me on essentially a weekly basis at this point in time, asking to like, pick my brain or have a phone call. I unfortunately between family, dental group, podcast, I'm on the board of a couple other like dental organizations and stuff. I can't do that, but I am happy to try to answer your questions via email. Just, give me some grace as long as it takes me a few weeks to get back to you. You can email me. It's docvallo@gmail.com. So DOCVALLO DDS@gmail.com. And then last but not least, if you want to check out my dental podcast, if you haven't already, it's called Dental Unfiltered. You can find Dental Unfiltered on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think it is on YouTube as well. I don't do any of the back end stuff, but I just show up and talk like I'm doing today. So that's kind of nice. But anyways, Jeff, I really appreciate you having me on. This was fun conversation. I enjoyed, I'm sure it was a nice change of pace for you since you guys are often talking more about passive income. And, we were talking probably a little more about active income today. But I will tell you, I guess I'll kind of end with this. I'm a big believer in the idea that your best move is to first invest in your active income. If you can increase your income, whether it's as an associate, if you can add skill sets, we have associates that will earn over $800,000 this year working 4 days a week as an associate. So you can make real, and these are general dentists. You can make really, really good money as an associate general dentist if you have an expanded skill set. Whether that's as an owner, if you can increase, your revenue and your income as a practice owner, it's going to allow you to take your investment so much further. So I think sometimes younger dentists, younger professionals, younger people get so tied up in, I need to make my money work for me. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think from an early age, you should be investing. But I think the best investment you can make is in yourself. Grow your own income first. And then once you've grown your own income, you have so much more possibility with other investments. My investments at this point in time are very liquid. They're things that I can quickly pull money out if I need to bootstrap another dental practice. Because I'll tell you what, guys, as you grow a group quickly, lending becomes very difficult. So I've had to bootstrap a couple of these second gen startups that we've done. I've had to loan personal cash to the business one time. We cash flowed another one through the business another time. But if my investments were all tied up in long-term type investments, I wouldn't have that opportunity. So, again, nothing against long-term investments, but I would recommend having a certain amount of cash, either sitting in, high yield money market accounts, or even like things like stock and crypto, where maybe you take a little bit of a loss, but you can access that the next day. But that's my investment philosophy right now. My plan is, as I continue to grow my group and grow my income and maybe even one day cash out on the group, that's when I will shift more of my money into more long-term type investments. So
That's when we'll get you over to the dark side in real
yeah,
estate.
yes, exactly. I got a few buddies that will hit me up every few weeks. Just let me know when you're ready for some real estate stuff. So I got a lot that have that itch. But well,
Got it.
thanks again, Jeff, man. I hope you have a great Friday. I hope you have a great weekend and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Absolutely.